Publications are the main and most traditional vehicles to disseminate research results. Other forms have also been emerging in the past decades, mainly thanks to digital technologies which support diffusion of a variety of additional artifacts. In general, they should not be viewed as substitutes for scientific papers, but rather as complements and enrichments. Examples are datasets, videos, simulations, software tools, and any kinds of software demonstrators. These additional forms of dissemination are very important in experimental research, where the experimental data can be shared, and perhaps even more in constructive research, where development of a concrete artifact is an essential goal of research. If the artifact is a software tool or a simulation package, it can be stored, transferred, or even remotely accessed. Others can directly access the artifact, not just its published description. In the case of experimental research, datasets can be made available and exchanged. Replication of experiments can be facilitated, and comparison of different experimental campaigns can be more easily performed. In the case of constructive research, the ability to diffuse artifacts and not just scientific papers presenting them can have tremendous benefits on the research developments. The fact that researchers can access the artifacts produced by others makes it easier to develop research that builds on previous research and can accelerate progress. For example, suppose that a researcher works on program analysis to detect software errors. He or she has published a paper that illustrates a new analysis method and has validated the approach by building a prototype analyzer, let me call it P1, using it against existing programs and showing the potential benefits. Another researcher who has an idea to extend and improve the published analysis method but does not have access to the prototype would need to build a new prototype, P2, from scratch. The ability to access P1 and build P2 starting from it might save a lot of time and effort. In reality, that is easier said than done, and in practice both reuse of experimental data and of artifacts described in scientific papers are poorly supported. When a paper is submitted, there is no mandatory request that the associated artifacts should also be submitted. And when the paper is reviewed, the associated artifacts are seldom examined by reviewers. For this reason, researchers don't feel an obligation to invest in artifacts, because this may distract them from other activities they consider more rewarding. On the other hand, papers often refer to artifacts and claim certain properties about them. These raise expectations that are not subject to any formal review and may not stand against attempts by other researchers to build on them. Let us try to better understand which are the desirable requirements for the diffusible artifacts. The bottom line is that the artifact should support repeatability of the uses that are presented in the paper. Repeatability simply means that the experiments reported in the paper and all the use cases described for the artifact can be rechecked. A check would require rerunning a bundled software made available by the researchers on the cases presented in the paper. For example, repeatability ensures that the dataset used to validate a new sophisticated algorithm described in a paper produces the same results under absolutely identical execution conditions. A more ambitious requirement is reproducibility. This means that it is possible to reproduce the same behaviors in different experimental cases, unless they are explicitly ruled out as not covered by the submitted artifact. The third and most ambitious could be called reusability. Assuming that repeatability and reproducibility are satisfied, other researchers might be interested in reusing and modifying the artifact for extensions and changes that could be the objective of their further research. Several conferences in ICST started experimenting ways to make the artifact evaluation process part of the reviewing of submitted papers. As an example, authors of accepted papers may also choose to submit the associated artifact for review. The review checks repeatability and officially labels the paper in the conference proceedings as a validated artifact paper. This may be viewed as an initial step in a direction that takes a holistic view of research products, not restricted to only include papers, with the goal of improving the diffusion of research results. If research diffusion may highly benefit from the diffusion of artifacts, and not only paper, why isn't this view common in practice? The first reason is that the possibility to share artifacts has only become possible through the recent digital transformation that is changing the world, and also the traditional scientific process. The second is that it requires a cultural change. This is no surprise. Social processes are subject to inertia, and possible changes may take time to become reality. The research community should incentivize artifact sharing among researchers, and researchers should be rewarded according to the impact of their research on others. Publishing papers is a step in the direction of diffusing results that may generate impact. But impact is amplified if the associated artifacts are also published. They undergo the same level of scrutiny before they are disseminated and are reused by other researchers.